Hello everyone. Today we are going to travel to a place where human chaos has been replaced by mathematical perfection. An environment where hundreds of machines dance at breakneck speeds without ever touching. But I'm also going to tell you how the infinite stupidity of a corporate suit, who thought robotics was just a game of remote-controlled cars, turned the most advanced warehouse in the country into a graveyard of crushed metal. I am the lead automation engineer at a massive logistics distribution center. We are talking about an industrial warehouse the size of 10 football fields, dedicated to fulfilling millions of online orders. Our pride and joy is the Hive. It's an immense metallic grid where 500 autonomous transport robots, the size of small cars, zip around at 30 kilometers per hour, carrying entire shelving units. It is a hypnotic and millimeter-perfect ballet. 500 robots to cross the same grid at that speed without crashing. The central server calculates millions of trajectories per second. The golden rule, the law of physics that keeps the system alive, is the dynamic braking distance. The software forces every robot to maintain a strict 3-meter empty space from the robot in front of it. That is the exact space the machine needs to perform an emergency stop if a package accidentally falls on the floor. Without that space, momentum makes stopping physically impossible. But a year ago, the corporation hired Leo as the new director of plant efficiency. Leo came from managing cash registers at a supermarket chain. To him, an empty space was wasted space, and he was convinced that we engineers put speed limits in place simply because we were cowards. Cyber Monday week arrived. The warehouse was on the brink of collapse. We had over 1 million packages waiting to be processed, and the Hive was working at maximum capacity. That Tuesday morning, Leo stormed into my glass-walled control room, which overlooks the robotic grid from above. He carried his tablet, an expensive coffee, and an attitude of superiority that made you sick. "Engineer," he said, pointing through the glass at the 500 robots speeding past each other. "I've been analyzing the swarm's performance. There is a glaring flaw in your code. The robots leave a 3-meter gap between themselves at intersections. 3 meters multiplied by 500 robots means we are wasting 40% of the grid's usable space. I want you to go into the source code right now and remove that ridiculous safety margin. I want the robots riding bumper to bumper, 0.5 meter apart, at top speed. We will process double the orders today." I slowly stood up from my chair, crossing my arms and looking at him as if he were insane. "Leo, that is massive mechanical suicide," I explained to him in a deep, tense voice, trying to make him visualize the physics of the disaster. "Those 3 meters aren't a whim. Each robot weighs nearly 0.5 ton when fully loaded. At 30 kilometers per hour, the momentum is brutal. If you eliminate the dynamic braking distance and pack them 0.5 meter apart, the instant a single robot brakes for an emergency, the 499 behind it will not have the physical space to stop. They will rear-end each other in a chain reaction. You will cause a high-speed multi-pile-up that will destroy 500 machines worth $10,000 each. You will ruin the Hive." Leo let out a snort of pure disdain, rolling his eyes with that reckless ignorance that only the worst executives possess. "Oh please. You IT guys always invent apocalyptic scenarios just so you don't have to change a single line of code," he replied, slamming his hand on the control desk. "They are laser-guided machines, they react in milliseconds, they don't need 3 meters to break. I've been optimizing spaces for years, and I won't let your fear stop me from breaking the national shipping record. This is a direct order from management. Either you reprogram the swarm's distance limit right now, or I'll call HR, fire you for severe insubordination, and bring in a programmer who knows how to push technology to the limit." Any robotics engineer knows that momentum and steel do not negotiate with managers, and that Leo's ignorance was about to unleash an unprecedented metallic explosion. But since my job was under threat, I took refuge behind the only unbreakable barrier in the corporate world, the digital signature. "I absolutely refuse to destroy the robotic fleet under my responsibility, Leo," I replied with absolute coldness, stepping away from the central keyboard. "But since you have the rank of director, you will assume the risk on the server." I pointed to the main screen. "You will log in with your biometric card. You will draft a manual command ordering the total deactivation of the Hive's dynamic braking distance. You will explicitly write that you reject my technical warning about momentum, chain reaction collisions, and the destruction of the swarm. And you will sign that you assume, personally, legally, and financially, all responsibility for the loss of the 500 machines and the halting of Cyber Monday shipments." Leo let out an arrogant laugh. "If this pathetic little theater makes you feel better, I'll gladly sign it," he declared. He swiped his card, drafted the order with a mocking smile, and validated the command. "There's your life insurance. Now, remove the limit and learn how to make money." I complied with the visual order. I hit the mass update button. The new code was transmitted to the 500 robots instantly. The disaster had just slammed its foot on the gas pedal. In a matter of seconds, the Hive's choreography changed terrifyingly. The 500 robots accelerated and packed together, eliminating the 3-meter safety buffer. Through our massive control room window, it looked like a dense river of orange steel and yellow shelving flowing at 30 kilometers per hour, with barely a few inches of separation between them. For the first 10 minutes, Leo smiled euphorically, rubbing his hands together as he watched the processed packages counter-skyrocket. But in a system where there are a million cardboard boxes, the probability of a physical error is 100%. At the central intersection of the grid, a poorly taped box popped open from the movement. A small plastic object fell onto the metal floor, right in the path of the lead robot in Sector B. Robot number 001's laser sensors detected the obstacle. Fulfilling its emergency programming, the robot locked its wheels and slammed on the brakes, skidding with a dull screech across the metal track. It stopped in time to avoid crushing the toy. But robot number 002, coming up right behind it at 30 kilometers per hour, carrying half a ton of weight, only had half a meter of distance. Physics is unforgiving. Clang! The impact sounded like a cannon shot. Robot 002 violently rear-ended 001, shattering its protective casings and sending shelves full of packages flying into the air. But that was only the beginning. Behind them came 498 more robots, blind and with no space to stop. The noise that followed was horrifying. It was a massive chain reaction crash. An apocalypse of twisted metal. Machine after machine smashed into the wall of collapsed robots. The deafening sound of sensors shattering, steel bending, and electric motors burning out filled the entire warehouse. The towering shelves toppled over each other like giant dominoes, crushing thousands of packages, laptops, TVs, and Christmas gifts under tons of weight. In less than 30 seconds, the majestic hive had transformed into a towering mountain of smoking scrap metal, electrical sparks, and shredded plastic. All 500 robots were completely destroyed or hopelessly jammed. The entire system died. Leo was petrified against the control room glass. His face had lost all its color. His hands were shaking so badly that he dropped his tablet on the floor. He had just realized that his whim to save 3 meters of space had vaporized $5 million in machinery and ruined the company's Cyber Monday. An hour after the accident, the smell of burning lithium batteries flooded the warehouse. The CEO of the corporation and the insurance adjusters arrived in an emergency rush. Upon looking down at the grid and seeing the graveyard of smashed robots, the CEO nearly suffered a nervous breakdown. We gathered in the main office. The silence was so thick you could choke on it. Leo, sweating profusely, hyperventilating, and on the verge of tears, attempted the sleaziest maneuver of a cornered boss. "Gentlemen, the robot's brakes failed," yelled Leo, pointing an erratic finger at me in front of the CEO. "The lead engineer didn't maintain the sensors. They crashed because of him. I asked for efficiency, and he sabotaged the system." The CEO looked at me, the veins in his neck bulging, waiting for my defense. I maintained an icy composure. I turned on the giant monitor in the room and accessed the central security server. There was the proof of his lethal execution. Massive letters projected right in front of the owner of the company. I order the total deactivation of the swarm's dynamic braking distance to force productivity. I formally reject the lead engineer's technical warning regarding momentum, chain collisions, and the massive destruction of the fleet. I assume, personally and legally, full financial responsibility for the loss of the machines and the halting of shipments. And right below it, the unalterable biometric signature of Leo, Director of Efficiency. The insurance adjuster read the order out loud. The CEO put his hands to his head, absorbing the level of criminal negligence they had reached. "Leo," whispered the CEO with an icy voice that made Leo back up against the wall. "You ignored the most basic laws of physics out of the arrogance of believing that a robot is a toy. You have cost us $5 million and paralyzed the most important warehouse in the country during the worst week of the year. You are fired immediately on the spot, and you are never to step foot in this building again." He turned to the company's lawyers. "Open a civil lawsuit for industrial sabotage. We are going to garnish every last cent of his assets to pay for the scrap metal he just created." Building security dragged Leo out, crying inconsolably. His career as a corporate executive was extinguished in that exact moment. It took us 3 full weeks of grueling labor, using manual cranes and hundreds of workers, to clear the mountain of twisted steel and crushed packages. We had to buy a completely new robotic fleet. I was promoted to General Director of Automation. And nowadays, I assure you, if a robot in this warehouse leaves 3 meters of distance when braking, absolutely no one dares complain that it is wasting time. If you liked it, hit the like button and subscribe for more.